Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. Today I am stoked to be able to talk about one of my favorite topics. Now, here's the thing, I know every new theme week I'm like, this is such an exciting topic, but that's because it really is. And they're all kind of my favorite topics, but this is one that I think a lot of us think we should do, we know we should do, but we're not really told how. And that is positive thinking, right? How many times have you had somebody be like, oh, just think positive? I'm pretty sure I've also said it on this podcast. Like, hey, just make sure you're cultivating positive thoughts. But how do you actually go about doing that? And that's what I want to talk about today and throughout the rest of this week. So it's one of my favorite topics. I love diving into the nitty-gritty of how to cultivate positive thinking. So let's dive into today, which is the number one way to cultivate positive thinking is to stop gossiping. Now, I know, yes, there is negative self-talk, and we will get to that. But the second that you start gossiping with other people is the second that positive thinking goes out the window. Because now it's societally acceptable to complain and to moan and to think negatively and to be victims. And here's what I mean by that. If you have an issue with something and you tell someone who can do something about it, that is not complaining. That is raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm seeing this issue. I'm letting someone know who can do something about it. It turns into gossiping the second you tell somebody who can do nothing about it. That is cultivating a negative mindset and negative thinking. Because you're telling someone who's either going to agree with you or just let you gripe. And in either way, the problem doesn't get solved. It's not solution oriented. Instead, it's complaining. Now, complaining may be harsh. Maybe you're venting to someone. If you're venting to someone who can't do anything about it, still gossiping, still complaining. Now, I think the most applicable place to apply this methodology of gossip is probably the workplace. But I think it can be applicable across a lot of areas in our life, right? You tell your best friend that you're really upset that your husband isn't keeping the house clean or helping you keep the house clean, or that your spouse isn't doing X, Y, Z, and you think that they should be. You are gossiping to your friend about your spouse when you could be communicating with your spouse and getting these issues resolved. And I say resolved because sometimes they can't be solved. Sometimes they can. Sometimes it's a work in progress. But you can at least get that information out there to someone who can do something about it. Versus saying and venting and I just need to let it out to somebody who can't do anything about it. Now you're cultivating negative thinking that it's okay for you to feel and think this way without coming up with a solution or without talking to the person who could help you resolve this issue. A. B. You are now also passing on that negativity, that complaining, that victim mentality to the person you're complaining to. So yes, a workplace, that's another easy one, right? I think that's the easiest one. But it can be as simple as complaining to your best friend about your spouse instead of talking to your spouse. It can be as simple as saying how upset you are about a decision your boss made to a coworker who has no insight into why the boss made that decision, who has no insight into the bigger picture, has no understanding why, and now you're trying to get them on the same page as you to be upset, and frankly, that's kind of stirring the pot when you could go to the boss who made the decision and say, hey, I'm a little upset with this. Can you explain why you made this decision? I'd like to have a little bit more information. Now, maybe the boss wasn't thinking in the way you were thinking, and there's something you see that they don't. If you do not go to them, they can't see that. They can't make those adjustments and changes, or they can't share with you why they made those decisions, and you guys can continue to work together as a team. Instead, you're gossiping to someone who can't do anything about it, and now you're getting everybody riled up with half of the information because you never went to the person who was the source. I think that we think gossiping is, oh, did you see what so-and-so did? And oh, I can't believe that they did this. I think we're adults. We're not in high school or junior high gossiping in that way anymore. But we are gossiping and cultivating negative mindsets by complaining, by griping, by venting, by, I just have to say this. I'm really bothered by XYZ. To people who can't make any difference in that situation. Now, the second you can step up to the plate, and you're going to get preachy Taylor here for a second because I feel very strongly about this. If you have negative emotions enough to talk to somebody who can't do anything about it, you need to step up to the plate and talk to the person who can do something about it. Otherwise, your emotions aren't strong enough and you shouldn't be spreading them around to everybody else. Pure and simple. And a lot of people are like, well, I want to tell my husband that I wish he would clean the bathroom and help me out, but I'm afraid that it will just cause a fight and a problem. And it's like, yeah, sure, it might. But it's also going to open up communication instead of spreading negativity. I'm really nervous to talk to my boss that I'm not happy with their decision. Yeah, that can happen. And maybe they're a crap boss, and I'm sorry about that. But it's better that you raise your hand and you say, hey, I'm having an issue with this. Then you continue to have that issue, spread that negativity, gossip and spread it around the rest of the team, and then everyone's unhappy. It's better that you talk to the boss, know where you stand, get some understanding one way or the other, and make decisions from a holistic point of view. But that means stepping into, raising your hand and saying, I don't think that this is right, or I'm not comfortable with this, or I don't understand. Can you explain further? Because I'm a little unhappy with this, but I know I only have half the picture. And a lot of us don't want to raise our hand and say that. It's way easier to gripe and to moan and to complain and to vent and to say it to somebody that you know has no control or power over the situation. So I'm going to step off my soapbox now and share that if you want to have a positive mindset, you want to think positively, really take a hard look at the conversations you're having and who you're having them with. And I'm saying that from like, are you gossiping and complaining? But is someone gossiping and complaining to you? That can spread. So when that happens and you're like, hey, I have no idea, you should go talk to the person who made that decision. Or as the best friend, hey, I totally feel you there. You should talk to your spouse. And husbands can be mad that their wives aren't cleaning the bathroom too, right? I'm not trying to stereotype here. But hey, you should go talk to your spouse because obviously I don't know what's going on in their mind and this would be resolved if you talk to them. Kind of cut it off at the pass. Because if it's not something you can solve, yeah, you can be a sounding board, but that only goes so far. Positive thinking is solution and resolution oriented. And that means you have to stop gossiping. Plain and simple. And I know I got on a little bit of a rant, but I feel very passionately about this. You want to change positive thinking, you don't gripe and complain to somebody else that can't do anything about it. And now it may be something in your life that no one is responsible for but you. Would you still gripe and complain about it to somebody else, or would you need to come up with a solution for yourself? Regardless of the situation, and I know, but Taylor, my boss is not a very nice person, and if I raise my hand and say that, there'll be retribution. Then it's time to get a new job. Stop playing the victim, because that is negative thinking, and start thinking about solutions. Start being your own hero, and start thinking positive and having these conversations that are not gossip, but conversations with people who can make change. And if you have this discussion and change can't be made or they refuse, you then at least know where you stand and you can make action-oriented, solution-oriented, positive decisions from there. So I hope that this episode resonated with you. If someone you know needs this, send it to them, share it with them, and spread the word about positive thinking and no gossip. But that said, above everything else, don't gossip, and remember, you are capable of happiness abound.